Hey, Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm Jonathan, webmaster of SpiderManFanRave.com, and tonight I'm being joined by James. What's going on, James?
I love cheddar chips.
Well, James, I have to respond to that with I love Pop-Tarts because I ate Pop-Tarts before this show started, and I'll just say it right now. I believe that Pop-Tarts are the single greatest invention that mankind has ever created. Screw the wheel, screw, cures for diseases, screw all of that stuff. Pop-Tarts are the single greatest achievement mankind has ever achieved.
Yeah, I love potato chips. And I love this Mountain Dew I'm drinking. And I love the WW network I have on watched classic WCW event, which I love playing right now. And I told John's mom I loved her last night, but I didn't mean it.
Ew, that's disgusting. So how's it going, James? How's your week been?
Good, pretty good. Even though I just did probably the world's worst own to you. That probably makes you hate your life now.
Not really. All right, but
Hi.
yes, for those of you who do not know we should probably preface this by saying that James's screen probably looks a little bit strange because he's podcasting on his phone right now because his laptop sucks so much. So yes, he's that's why his screen looks very weird and distorted. So we apologize to anyone who that's messing up or maybe causing seizures. I don't know. I don't know. But how was my week this week? I'll be honest, it was kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. I've had better first weeks of classes than I had this week. That's all I'm gonna say. In terms of anything else, I have nothing else to say. It rained very hard a few days ago, and since then it's been gorgeous. So yay! Thanks for relatively good weather this weekend. People behind the weather. I don't know, the atmosphere. The atmosphere is what's behind the weather. So thank you, atmosphere. But here's something that, oh my God, I have no idea where I was going with that segue. I tried to make a segue and I just absolutely failed. But what are we talking about tonight? At least in terms of Spider-Man related news, there really isn't a whole lot of news. There's not a whole lot. It's very, very boring in terms of the world of Spider-Man right now. No,
Charger is not a toy. Okay, it is a toy, but it's not your toy. Give it to me. Give it to me, Drizzle. Thank you. It's not a toy. Sorry, my dog's in me.
Yes, James's dog is trying to take away his Power Ranger toys. In terms of Spider-Man news, there isn't a whole lot, but there is one piece of slightly quasi kind of interesting news that's really not all that interesting, but we feel like we should mention it just because of who it is. Jon Favreau, who was the director of the first two Iron Man films, he was an executive producer on both Avengers films, and he's also played Happy Hogan in all three Iron Man films. Yeah, he's going to be in Spider-Man: Homecoming. There's not really
Don't forget the other superhero movie he was involved in.
I have no idea. I don't know that much about him.
He played Foggy Nelson in the 2003 Ben Affleck Daredevil movie.
Oh, see, I've never seen that because I've been advised not to see that. So I was not even aware of that. But
that's why I thought if he ever came back to a Marvel thing, it would be the Daredevil show. Just for the joke of, hey, we got somebody from the 2003 movie in the show.
But yeah, that's not the idea that Happy Hogan is going to be in Spider-Man: Homecoming is not really all that significant. But the thing we feel like we should mention about it is that this is the guy who started the Marvel Cinematic Universe pretty much, coming into what is probably going to be the movie that continues the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Avengers Infinity War and whatever Avengers 4 is eventually. So we feel like...
Can I touch upon that? The fact that they now said that Avengers Part 2 or whatever it is now just going to be Avengers 4 because it's not going to have the same story as Infinity War?
No, yeah, what about it?
I thought my dog was... Drizzle, are you okay?
Uh-oh, James's dog is having problems.
No,
I'm
she's
not quite...
okay. She was in the middle of a yawn, but I was also giving her some chips, so I thought she was choking on the chip. But she was yawning. You scared me, Drizzle. You scared me.
All right.
More chips for you, though. Scared me.
You were talking about Avengers Infinity War or something like that?
I apologize to the audience. You know how it is if you have a pet. I'm sorry. So yeah, my point was the fact that they now said it's a completely different story. I'm starting to think that something had to happen that made them do that major shift for Avengers 4.
Well, they've
Like,
said they've come out and said that, like, when they originally titled the first two, like, or when they originally titled those movies as a two-parter, it was kind of disingenuous because there were overarching elements, but they're not a part one and part two, so to say. So it's like they said that nothing really changed. It's just like their title was a little bit misleading. So I don't know. Take that for
because I'm starting to think maybe the rumors are kind of like at least something happened, maybe a deal, with Fox for the Fantastic Four at least. I don't think the X-Men, because as long as even with a shitty box office numbers that Apocalypse got, those are still good enough for them to keep on making X-Men movies without even worrying about Marvel. But I think the Fantastic Four, maybe Avengers 4 promoting Phase 4, it's in the cards.
I don't know. I thought I read an interview from someone maybe a week ago. I think it was the Russos. Don't quote me on that, but I thought they said that they know nothing about a Fox deal. So, and if the Fantastic Four were going to be in Infinity War or Avengers 4, the Russos would probably be the ones to know about it. So, James, I'm gonna probably disagree with you on that. But this isn't an event. This isn't
the same thing. Spider-Man 2.
This isn't an Avengers podcast. This is a Spider-Man podcast. We just wanted to throw it out there that Jon Favreau, the guy who started the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is now going to be in this big movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, which we can't deny that it's a big film because, we get it. Spider-Man's had 5 films before this. He was in Civil War, but Homecoming is his homecoming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's going to basically establish, even more so than Civil War, the character that is probably going to drive the Marvel Cinematic Universe once Phase 3 is over. So
This is not a shot at the other 5 Spider-Man movies, but he's where he belongs. Spider-Man is best when he's in a world where he's not the only superhero. Where he can bounce off Tony Stark or Johnny Storm or, Steve Rogers, the Hulk, Thor. He needs to be in a world where he can bounce off jokes at them when they have a Marvel team up,
And so that's why this is just kind of cool. It's like the guy who started everything is now going to be in the movie that really kind of is going to push everything forward and keep it all going. So we just thought we would mention that. There's really nothing else to say about it because it's like, what's Happy Hogan going to do in a Spider-Man movie? Oh, hey, Mr. Stark. Mr. Stark, you want another beer?
It's going to be Tony pulling up in a limo, and then he's going to be talking to Peter, and then him going to be telling, hey, Happy, drive. And Happy will like, okay, Mr. Stark. And then they drive off.
All right, but that's all we really wanted to mention about that is it's just cool that the father of this whole thing is now going to be going along for the ride as well. But there's really no other news to talk about. It's just it's kind of a boring time to be a Spider-Man fan. I'll admit, because it's like there's no movie stuff that they're filming. That's great. I mean, that's a good thing. This sounds like a sarcastic clap, but filming is a good thing. The cartoon sure is happening. And I'll admit, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool they brought Spider-Gwen into the cartoon. They brought Spider-Gwen and Mr. Negative onto the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. I think that's kind of cool. I'll admit that.
This is kind of funny that John now is like, we're not talking about rumors unless we have to. We're not doing this. We're not speculating. But I still remember when I first joined the podcast, how John was dreading the day after Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out. Feel like, oh, there's going to be no more movie news forever. It's going to be 3 years probably. Ah.
Yes, But back in those days, oh man, that was 2.5 years ago. Wow. It's been 2.5 years since that film came out. Wow, where has the time gone? Life is so much different now. But you know what else? You know who else's life is different? Hobie Brown's life. And
Who?
Electro's life, clearly. And Spider-Man's life.
Wait, how do you pronounce his name?
Whose name?
Him. Prowler.
Hobie Brown.
Hobie?
Yes. How else did you think it was?
Hobby.
You thought his name was Hobie Brown. His name is Hobie Brown. James. Okay.
H-O-B-Y. Hobby.
It's Hobie Brown. Hobie. Hobie Brown. James. Wow, okay. You listeners have just gotten a live viewing experience of James not knowing how to pronounce a simple name. Usually I'm the stupid one on this podcast. It's nice to have a role reversal for a change.
In defense, whenever you read a Hobgoblin issue and they call him Hobby, they spell it the same way. So what am I supposed to think when I'm reading the panels, John?
Yeah, well, you know what? Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 17. This issue came out this week. So this will lead us into our review section of the podcast. This is probably going to be a shorter episode, we will admit, because there's not a whole lot to talk about this week. This comic is really it, and there's not a whole lot to talk about with this comic either. You know, spoiler alert, but it might be a short review. But got a creative team here. Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 17, Before Dead No More, Part 2, Spark of Life. Dan Slott writer, R.B. Silva is a guest penciler. Adriano Di Benedetto on inks. Marte Gracia on colors. Lettering, VC Joe Caramagna. Cover artist, Alex Ross. Associate editor, Devin Lewis. Editor, Nick Lowe. And so this issue begins months ago, but in our time, it's 2.5 years ago. Because this takes us right back to Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 2. And remember that arc, James, where Peter had just gotten his body back. He discovered that he was the head of Parker Industries. And during that time, he was fighting Electro because Amazing Spider-Man 2, the movie, had just come out, and they had to put Electro in the books. And so Electro's powers were all wonky, and he had decided to go see a friend of his named Francine. Well, this is her side of the story because, according to her, our world sucks. It's all just bills and jobs and boring crap. But sometimes I get to play in their world, and that's when I feel alive. I'm Francine Fry, and I collect supervillains, like my boy Electro here. Francine Fry. I want you to remember that name as we go along in this recap. Because, wow. Just wow.
She's eating a bacon cheeseburger?
Actually, no, she's more of a Big Mac kind of girl.
John, you did not get the joke.
No, I have no idea what that joke meant at all.
Does that mean that she wanted cheeseburger? Her last name is Fry.
I'm slow, James. I'm sorry. But, so it's basically a flashback to the scene where she and Electro kiss, and Electro accidentally murders her because, like, she kisses a guy who has electricity in himself that he cannot control. And so,
James Cameron script.
So, Francine, the scene cuts to Francine then waking up and presumably coming out of an egg. It's like she's been hatched by some sort of like giant. It's just
John. It's because she's the other Electro.
It's just like the Jackal has this weird thing where it's like people are being hatched out of eggs, and it's just really strange. But Francine comes out. What? My ink, my piercings. Where did all? Francine, please. I need you to pay close attention. You were dead, but now you're alive again. And if you wish to stay this way, you'll need this pill daily. That means you work for me now. Work with the lizard and the rhino? And for a real-life supervillain boss? Forget the pill. Count me in. Villain? Miss Fry, I don't think you understand. We're the good guys. Nah. Oh, yes. Literally, she says nah. It's like, jeez, Dan Slott.
Jackal in the room. And the Jackal has done some batshit crazy things, especially in the 90s. And he's probably thinking, I think I made a mistake here. Because she's going, nah, 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 nah.
So we cut to San Francisco, and all of a sudden we see Spider-Man, or who we think is Spider-Man, swinging around the city. Are you being conspicuous? Yeah, it goes against every fiber of my being, but I'm staying in the light and making a big honking spectacle of myself. Do a flip or something. Give me a raise and you can have flips. I need you to be seen. Don't think that'll be a problem. Audience of one coming up. Ah! Remember, don't tell jokes. You're bad at them. Hey, do I tell you how to do your job? And then, of course, the guy he's saving chimes in because he thinks he's talking to him. You could if you wanted to. Actually, I could. I used to wash windows too. Don't say that. Brown, how'd you ever keep a secret identity? I didn't. You figured it out. Remember, Parker? And yes, it turns out that this is just Hobie Brown once again masquerading as Spider-Man in order to hide Peter's identity. Here's the thing. We've not seen this since the first issue of this volume. I completely forgot that this was even happening. So, it took me a minute to even realize that this was what they were trying to do, because I haven't seen this done in, how long has this volume been going on? A year? So it's been a year since we've seen anything like this. So yeah, Hobie swings back to his apartment, and he's talking to Peter, and he says, yes, are we done here? Actually, I need you to do one more job for me tonight. There's a company I'm looking into, New You. They've developed a revolutionary medical procedure that I might be using on a loved one. I've done all the research I can, but there are some secure files locked away at their corporate headquarters. Nope, flag on the play. But you're talking about industrial espionage. You want me running around as your pretend Spidey? Fine. It may be one step above those guys dressing up in Times Square, but it's honest money. I'm not asking you to steal anything. I need pictures. I need to know if their procedure is safe before it's used on family. An innocent life's on the line, Hobie. Fine. Suit, turn off the underoos, switch to my work clothes. Underoos, obviously, Captain America Civil War reference, obviously.
Because this is Marvel. We're going to shove our movies down your throat, even if it means canceling other books because we don't get the movie rights.
Hey, they're billion-dollar cash cows, man. I mean, I don't really argue with that, but
I'm complaining because remember, this is DC who said that we're not going to be slaves to our movies. And yet, if you read the current Suicide Squad book, it's almost directly ripped from the movie.
Anyway, so Prowler heads off to New U headquarters, and he sees he's trying to talk to Peter over the webware intercom. Well, not the intercom, but over the webware, and the signal's being scrambled. And he says, "That's a good sign. Your webware devices are top notch. If the signal's not getting through, someone's jamming it." So obviously he figures out that something shady's going down. He manages to break in without setting off any alarms. And he manages to run into he doesn't run into them, but he sees two guards walking past. And here comes the pop culture reference. I'm telling you, I got a Vaporeon on level 3. You are not using the dedicated Wi-Fi for Pokemon Go. They know we're doing it. There's a gym in the cafeteria. Look, just not while we're on duty. We're supposed to keep our eyes open. Hey, gotta catch them all. There is the pop culture reference, obviously. Spider-Man books are known for their pop culture references, so it's not really a thing that's exclusive to Slott. But this is the point.
That could be like other podcasts that are freaking out anytime Slott puts a pop culture reference, and they're saying, why can't it be like the good old days? When Peter was making pop culture references from the 80s, in the 1980s? What are the good old days? This is the same thing.
Yeah, it's just fun to laugh at them sometimes, but Spider-Man books have always done this, so it's not that big. It's not that big of a deal. But But this is the point where we learn that this issue is in between the scenes of the last issue. Because, yeah, we see this exact scene all over again. Francine being revealed to Electro as Electro is about to be repowered. And so Francine sees Electro, she sees everything that's going on, and she starts to become a little bit hesitant about it. Like, a little bit hesitant about her whole situation, and she's like, man, I never should have tried to be part of this world. And so they're trying to repower Electro, and Hobie Brown sees all of this, and he starts taking a video recording just to, have evidence to show Peter. And the thing is, they feed Electro all of the electricity, but it turns out that Peter's cure that he used for him way back in the beginning of Volume 3, it's pretty much permanent. Like, they cannot recharge this guy. All of the electricity that they fed into him went into his suit, but it didn't go into Electro himself. So basically, the experiment turned out to be a failure. But here's an interesting thing. Francine was resurrected with traces of Electro's DNA was still on her or whatever. And so what did you just say, James? I'm sorry, I was talking over you.
Lightning does not have any biological connection, so it wouldn't be lightning powers in the DNA.
Well, like, it just says, like, we used DNA from her charred husk from her cheek after she kissed Dylan and Max's saliva from before Parker cured him. It got tossed into the genetic mix. Ha, superhuman spit. How can you not love mad science? I'm not kidding. That's an actual quote from the Jackal. But,
bullshit.
Yeah, I don't really understand. I'm going to be honest. I've read this comic like multiple times, and I still don't really understand how this worked.
They say that his radioactive electro blood somehow by her cheek absorbed it when she got charred. So when she got reborn, she now has his powers. But again, at least spiders are a biological thing that can get in their blood, mixed with Peter's blood, gave him the powers. I give him the suspend disbelief for that. Electricity isn't a biological thing.
I'm going to be honest, like, if you listeners want to explain to us how this works, because neither one of us really understands this. Like, so basically she just got electro powers because she had tongue sex with a guy who had electro powers. Okay. Sure. So she got an electro STD, apparently.
Oh my god, I wonder if that was Slot was going for.
I don't know. That was a joke, James. I don't know. Don't take that too seriously, but... So she kisses Max.
He may or may not have intentionally did that. It's just, ugh.
So Francine figures this out. And, it turns out that whole thing of she doesn't want to be part of this world, that's out the window in less than a page because she's like, pucker up, Max. More, give me more. And she becomes charged, but she also murders Max Dillon in the process. So the original Electro has gone bye-bye. Does anyone care in the slightest?
Because he's going to get at the end of this with his powers back. You know that.
Yeah, it's like... You could not pick a worse time to try to create drama with Electro going down. It's like, no. Not in this storyline where the title of it, like where the whole premise of it is people coming back. It's just like, just stop. But, and that's why the end of this issue also creates no feelings with me, but we'll get to that later. So Prowler sees this and he's like, man, I got to do something fast. And he comes out and basically gets his ass handed to him by the lizard. So he decides to retreat. And Francine goes after him as the new Electro, who they never name in this issue, but from what I hear, her name's supposed to be Spectra, which that's a fine name, I guess. I'm pretty sure I read that in an interview somewhere, so I guess we can call her that. But Francine, Spectra, whatever, goes after the Prowler, and she fries him, and he falls onto a rooftop, and she's like, man, I'm fighting the Prowler. This is so cool. And Prowler's trying to send the message in the recording that he got of New You and the Jackal and Electro and all this stuff. He's trying to send it to Peter, but the message won't go through. And so Francine's like, you know what? Now that I think about it, Daredevil would have been cooler for my first fight. Or Spider-Man. You want Spider-Man? I can do that. I literally got his tricks up my sleeve. So he webs her. And turns out that was not a good idea. Really? I've been doing this all of 10 minutes, and even I know that wasn't too bright. And so she fries him. And he meets the same fate as Max Dillon. Because, yeah. So, Electro and Prowler. Francine has been Electro for 10 minutes, and she's already got a body count. Nice. Just, wow. So, yeah. Prowler goes down, and then the next page, he comes out of what appears to be a pod this time, not an egg. I don't know if you can see that.
Well, because the pod is how the Clone Saga worked.
Yeah, so, okay, what just happened? I can answer that, Hobie. You died. And I brought you back. Now I need you to pay very close attention. I have something to show you. And so Peter, in between the scenes in Oklahoma, he's trying to get contact with Hobie. He does, and Hobie's like, there's nothing weird going on over here, man. Everything's legit. I just got to keep looking into it some more, do some more snooping. Thanks, Hobie. Keep me posted, all right? Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate that. You can see now that you made the correct choice, right? What you've shown me, I can't unsee. You're building a better world, Professor Warren, and if you'd let me, I'd like to be a part of it. I knew you'd come around. After all, say it, Francine. We're the good guys. Exactly. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm so sorry. I should have told you this sooner. You see this pill? You need to take it daily. Doctor's orders. Dun, dun, dun. To be continued. Why is James holding a random Joker up to the screen?
I wanted to see if I scared you.
You don't... A little tiny action figure on a little tiny box on my screen, James, does not scare me. But, yeah, okay, what to say about that issue? Because moving into our thoughts section, that sure was an advertisement for the Prowler series that's coming out in a few months. I think it's October or November that the first issue of that launches. I don't know which one. I know it's coming out as part of the new Marvel Now. But yeah, the title of this book should be the title of this book is The Amazing Spider-Man, but that felt more like the Amazing Prowler ad, because this was 20 plus pages that I paid $4 for that I really didn't feel like I needed to pay $4 for, because this was a filler issue that takes place between the scenes of the last issue, and whenever that happens, you know something's really a filler issue. It's not that it's bad. It's not a bad story. It's just that I didn't care. It's just that I didn't care about it. It's nothing against the Prowler. I have no problem with the Prowler. I like his first story back from the 60s when he becomes the Prowler and Peter Parker throws himself out of a window in the Daily Bugle in order to try and get away as Spider-Man so that he can come back and try to fight the Prowler, which I've always liked that story. I think that's a solid story. But it's just like, there's nothing in this comic that intrigued me. Oh, Prowler's swinging around as Spider-Man because Peter's still trying to hide his identity. We've not seen that in 17 issues. Like, no, 16 issues. It's like, we saw that in the first issue. They never touched it or even mentioned it again. So that has no dramatic effect. Francine Fry. Let's all just take a moment to enjoy the awfulness of that name. Fry. And her name, when she becomes the new Electro. That is literally the worst. That is some of the worst pun you can possibly do. The new Electro is one that I don't care about because I've never been given any reason to care about her. She was this random girl.
It reminds me of Briny Day when they had a new Scorpion that appeared for all of one issue because Gargan came back in whatever that storyline, like 6 months later when Slot's solo run started. Scorpion, Matt Gargan was back. So you introduced a new Scorpion for one issue. And you don't even see them ever again. This is what this is going to remind me of, because you're never going to see her again. She might go on to be a villain in the Prowler book that gets canceled. And then, before we know it, Max Gargan's back.
It's just like, we've never been given any reason to care about this woman. She was this random girl that Electro kissed 2.5 years ago. We never saw her again. And now she's like becoming, and it's like, oh, she likes to hang out with supervillains. Okay, that's stupid. Why should I have any sympathy for this girl at all? She kissed a guy who she knew could easily fry her. You do not get my sympathy when you actively do stupid shit like that. Yeah, it's just like, as Electro, she was Electro for all of 10 minutes before she accumulated a noticeable body count, which, does that make her a badass? I don't really know. Not really, I don't think.
It's the comic cliche that, for some reason, no comic writer has been able to notice. Is that we got to make the new bad guy look badass. How do we do that? We had them kill off an old villain. That's lazy. That's lazy, and you want how many times that worked? Never.
And plus, it's like what we said during the recap. The whole premise of this event is people coming back. So you getting rid of characters is meaningless and just utterly pointless. So I don't dislike the character. I just don't care because I've not been given a reason to care yet. If she gets fleshed out a little bit more and if she has a little bit more time, then maybe I'll start to like her a little bit more. But it's like, I don't care. Hobie Brown being taken down and brought back. Don't care. It's just like, it's nothing against the character. I've never been very interested in the Prowler. I don't have anything against him. I like him when he shows up, but it's just, he's never been my favorite character. But the thing is, it's just like, this whole story just did not interest me. It felt like something that should have been more of a 0.1 issue. Should have been like, oh, hey, here's this 0.1 issue that you can buy and that it'll supplement the story for you, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary for everyone to go out and spend $3.99 on this book because like it's an essential part of the arc, because it's not. It's like, hey, here's a Prowler story with some Pokemon Go references in it, a new Electro that no one cares about, and yeah. The artwork by Silva, Di Benedetto, and Gracia is pretty solid overall. I think the Prowler looks really good. I think the villains look fine. The coloring, the inking, all that's strong and solid. So the artwork is pretty good. But other than that, I just give this issue a thumb sideways because it's just like, meh. I spent $3.99 on this, and it's like, I didn't hate it. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate this issue, but I also didn't care. It was like, oh, hey, a 20-page ad for a Prowler book. That really, like, Peter Parker does nothing in this issue. It's a between the scenes of the last issue, so it's like, it just screams filler, and it screams unnecessary. So I give it a thumb sideways. I think if you haven't read this issue already, I'd say don't bother. It's just like, you don't need to know any of this, really. It's just, this would have worked better as a 0.1 issue. All right, James, but what did you think of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 17?
It's crap. Moving on.
Okay, then. Do you care to elaborate on why you think it is crap?
It's pointless. It has nothing to do with what the fuck's going on. It is a waste of time. You wasted an issue of Amazing Spider-Man that you could have used for actual storytelling on fuckers nobody gives a shit about.
Well, I think the Prowler has some fans.
Bobby Brown before this. All they cared about is, hey, he appeared a few times in the 70s. Moving on. Literally, that's all the Prowler is. He's a character who was in the 70s. And now he's Peter's roadie. That's it. And then you got this new Electro chick. Like I said, you watch how fast it's Max Dillon again. Like the clock's ticking on her run as Electro.
It was ticking. It was ticking before it even started.
Because Dylan's gonna be reborn because the charge from her kiss ended up just burning him or some bullshit like that. It recharged him because that's what he needed because she had his DNA. So that was the on switch. So he's back and he's gonna kill her, and then he's the only Electro. How much you want to bet that this is how it's gonna go?
We still don't understand the concept of the Electro STD or whatever the heck caused her to become Electro. I mean, like, I get that this is a comic book where, like, this is a comic set in a universe where just really weird stuff happens pretty much on a daily basis. But that I just can't even wrap my head around.
Like I said, Peter gets bit by a radioactive spider. It's a biological insect with DNA biting another person where their saliva, their DNA, their blood gets into Peter's bloodstream. I can expend disbelief then that would give him a superpowers. Getting a kiss from electricity doesn't fucking give you lightning powers.
It sends you to a better place. All right, James, but any other thoughts on it, and do you give this issue a thumbs up, a thumbs sideways, or a thumbs down?
Thumbs down. This was filler. It was just shit. It was bad. It was not needed. It was a backdoor pilot for a sitcom that's going to need to cancel for 5 episodes. I mean, this is... Because let's call it spade a spade here. They tried to give the Prowler his own ongoing, like in the 90s, I think, and it only lasted 2 issues. Two!
That's one more than 1 and 1 less than 3.
So, yeah. You're promoting a book for a character nobody gives a shit about in an issue of Amazing Spider-Man. This is the problem that I've been having with this book since Peter came back. You're promoting people who are not Spider-Man in Spider-Man's book.
All right, but that's going to pretty much wrap up our review for this week, and that's also pretty much going to wrap up this episode of the podcast because there's not a whole lot to talk about. We're sorry. It's a slow week for Spider-Man. But James, any final shout-outs or words for the listeners before we sign off?
I can't think of any real shout-outs this week, so bye.
All right. My shout out this week, Marvel, Stanley, Steve Ditko, Dan Slott, RB Silva, all you people. Thank you for Spider-Man. Thank you for the comic review this week. Other shout out is to Pop-Tarts because Pop-Tarts are the single greatest invention mankind has ever come up with.
A room with the Pop-Tarts already.
Other shout out this week, Pure Aqua Spring Water because it's a staple of this podcast by now. Other shout outs. Do I have any? I don't know. Shout out to the American labor force because tomorrow's Labor Day. So, yay! Shout out to the American labor force. Woohoo! Yeah. Okay. There's nothing else. So, next week we'll be back. Probably with another classic issue. Probably another classic story. Because we do not have another issue of Amazing Spider-Man until, like, middle of this month. So it'll be probably a couple weeks of classic stuff. But the next issue, we are promised some actual development with the Doc Ock plot. Like, something will happen. Finally, after a year. We've been promised this. So
It's been longer than a year, John.
yeah, it's been like since the end of Superior. So
Yeah.
2.5 years. So are we finally going to put this Superior Spider-Man plot to bed? Let's just get done with it and just move on. All right, but so thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next week. Enjoy life, ladies and gentlemen. That is the key. Find joy in the smallest things and the large things as well.